uh, three full members, and Dylan is our alternate. Now, online, who's up here?
John's here, Tom. I don't know if you can hear me.
John Kerr.
Yes.
There we go. John's here. Good. All right, so there's four of us. This is our annual formative meeting. We need to just take care of a few pieces of business. We need to approve the minutes from our last meeting. And I thought we had one last fall, but it seems that we didn't. This is from January of 2023. And I sure thought we had one last fall, so I'm just, but.
Well,
Carrie's,
maybe you did and I just
I don't
missed
believe
it.
it. I couldn't find any note of it. So if you've had a chance to review this, are there any suggestions or amendments? If not, I would field a motion to approve as written.
Motion to approve is written.
Second.
And it's moved and seconded.
Approve.
Yes, John.
No, I just approve.
Okay. And those all in favor of approving the minutes as written, then.
You gotta do roll call because we're on Zoom.
So, John, how do you vote?
I vote yes. Yes.
Yes.
Susan?
I approve.
And Tom, yes. All right. We need to elect officers for next year, and this is an unusual board in that we meet only once a year as necessary, or when there is an appeal, and this board hasn't fielded an appeal in about 20 years. But I have been chairman now for, I think, 4 years, maybe 5. And I would like to step aside from being chairman. I gave that warning last time we met. Presently, I'm chair, Patrick's vice chair, and Susan is secretary. Peter Wilcox isn't with us tonight. But I would like to hear some discussion or put forward one of our members to be chair.
Mine the on deck circle because I'm vice chair.
That would be a reasonable assumption. Would you be willing to do that, Patrick?
Sure.
Okay. I nominate Patrick to be chair of the Board of Appeals.
Whatever it is, I'm against it.
Any other nominations?
Not for chair.
Hearing none, let's vote again by roll call. For Patrick O'Bannon as chair. John?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Patrick?
Reluctantly, yes.
Tom? Yes. Susan?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. We'll discuss as the meeting goes on, what I think you need to do next.
Okay.
And then,
Vice chair.
well, I'm willing to stay on as a secretary if we have an appeal, which may be likely.
Okay. All right. So I nominate Susan to be secretary. Any other nominations?
Second.
Okay. I'm not sure we have to.
Well, I guess we don't do that.
I don't know. John, Susan for secretary.
Yes, thank you, Susan.
Patrick.
Yes.
Tom, yes, thank you. Susan,
Yes.
good. All right, we do need a vice chair. I guess I would be willing to do that. sort of switch seats with you.
That's a nice idea.
That's great, because
I think that's
I
good.
can benefit from your experience.
My limited
Your
experience.
limited.
Okay. Would someone like to nominate me?
I nominate Tom as vice chair.
Okay, any other nominations? John, how do you vote?
Thank you, Tom. Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Tom, yes. Susan?
Yes.
All right, so we have a new slate of officers. I would like to review a couple of things about purpose and jurisdiction. Do each of you have a manual like this?
Yes.
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 Dylan, do you have one of these?
I don't have that.
Have you been to the training,
Yeah,
but they didn't give you one of these?
I don't remember getting that.
Okay,
But I did go to the training,
all right.
last year, and I'm happy to go to another seminar
Okay,
and print that out,
yeah.
whatever.
Carrie, do you know how we go about getting?
I can find out.
Okay,
I did it online.
We did it online, and then the town
Got
game
those.
got those folders, yeah.
Yeah, we did. the
I
whole
might
thing
have an
online.
extra one somewhere. I'll look.
okay.
Yeah,
Back at these
think I-
minutes. Yes, John?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when I did the training, I think I purchased it at the training and then the town reimbursed me. So I guess there's a number of ways to get them. If I'm thinking of if that's like the Bible of the appeals board.
All right.
A good book.
Carrie, I also saw in the minutes from the last meeting that someplace in here, Jim Mitchell stated that he previously received a folder with the relevant ordinances, which has been helpful.
Hmm. I should
Maybe
check
that's
with
what
him.
you've been looking for. Check with Jim Mitchell,
Okay,
okay?
good idea.
Can
Since-
we all get copies of that? It's important.
There is something like this that shows all the land use ordinances.
It
Oh, you
shows
have
all
the
the
whole
ordinances, like
All
land use,
ordinances.
development
So
review,
that's all we need.
harbor,
Is that.
everything. But that's the Board of Appeals manual. It's not our town
Yeah,
ordinance.
this is generic Board of Appeals.
So only if we have to go into session to do that, then we would need to get.
That's right, then you would need to familiarize
Then I won't
yourself
worry
with
about
land
that.
And
use
they all
ordinance
exist on the town's website.
Right.
Okay, so yes, if you would see about maybe Jim having that thing, and if you would see about how to get one of these for Dylan, that'd be
Okay,
good.
yep.
I do want to, read you just a couple of things from here. One is that to avoid violations of the Freedom of Information Act and the constitutional right to due process, board members should not have discussions with other board members regarding an application or other board business outside an advertised board meeting. The FOAA requires discussion, deliberation, and voting by the board to be done at a public meeting so that the public can hear and observe what is said and done by the board. So discussion between board members about board business outside of public meetings should not occur whether or not a majority of the board is involved and whether or not the discussion occurs by phone, by email, at a sports event or grocery store, or after the board meeting was adjourned. And I think we've been good about that since we haven't really had any business to avoid talking. I also wanted to talk about alternate members and quorums. Generally, a majority of the total number of regular members of the board constitutes a quorum. A member who must abstain due to a legal conflict of interest in a particular case may not be counted in determining whether a quorum is present for that issue, absent ordinances language to the contrary. However, if so many members are disqualified due to a conflict of interest, bias, or other legal reason, that the board will not be able to meet its quorum requirements, and there is no other body legally authorized to act, those members may be able to participate under a legal theory called the rule of necessity. The board should consult with its attorney before applying a rule of necessity in order to determine whether some other alternative is possible, such as the creation of a special board to hear that particular case. All right, alternate members. If alternate board member positions were created by the legislative body, and they were by our town, and if those positions have been filled, as they have with Dylan, then the chairperson may designate an alternate to take the place of a regular voting member at a particular meeting when a regular member is absent or disqualified due to a conflict of interest or otherwise. An alternate who has not been designated to take the place of a regular member at a particular meeting is not legally a board member for the purposes of that meeting and has no right to make motions, second them, or vote. It is safest from a due process standpoint to allow alternate members to make comments or ask questions only to the extent that members of the public are allowed to do so. Neither alternates nor members of the public should be allowed to make comments once the board has closed its record and begun its deliberations and decision-making process, unless the board is prepared to reopen its record and allow both comments and rebuttal.
Can you designate the alternate in order to make up a quorum?
You can do it anytime, if the board is not fully seated. One thing that is important, though, if there were a appeal in process, an alternate could only be sitting as a voting member if that alternate has been there at all of the meetings of substance about that appeal.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And this board only meets if called on. Other than these, whatever this is, like a,
And this is just an annual.
yeah. But generally, the Board of Appeals is sort of a dormant board.
It's been dormant for 18 years.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But it can come back to life.
Yeah, I'm happy to serve
At
as
any
an
moment.
alternate.
All right. With that said, I want to report to you that a citizen did contact me about the appeal process. And I exchanged several emails. And in the beginning, I was explaining the appeal process. And the citizen was asking about subdivision ordinances, and I directed them to the land use ordinance that is available to everyone online at the Islesboro website. And then the citizen said that was a lot. And then were there certain pieces that they should look at? And I continued just to explain the function of the Board of Appeals. The citizen made a vague request about an appeal, but I said that it wasn't possible to appeal a process. It was possible to appeal a decision. Now, the appeal of a decision might rest on the process that had taken place, but for an appeal to be made, there needs to be a specific decision and a date of that decision to warrant an appeal. And our jurisdiction this is what our land use ordinance says about meetings and public hearings. The board shall hear appeals from decisions of the planning board. Decisions as set forth in 1510A and B on an appellate basis. The board shall hear appeals from the decision of the code enforcement officer as set forth in 1510A and B, as well as variance requests on a de novo basis. When acting in an appellate capacity, the board may reverse the decision of the planning board only upon finding that the decision was contrary to the specific provisions of the ordinance or contrary to the facts presented to the planning board. Such appellate review is limited to the record of the proceedings before the planning board, and the board shall not receive or consider any evidence that was not presented to the planning board. But the board may receive and consider oral and written argument. If the board determines that the record of the planning board proceedings is not adequate, the board may remand the matter to the planning board for additional fact finding. When acting in a de novo capacity, the board shall hear and decide the matter anew, undertaking its own independent analysis of the evidence and the law and reaching its own decision. For all matters before the board, the person filing the appeal or request shall have the burden of proof. A violator or complainant may not appeal enforcement matters to the board. The Board of Appeals, any party can make an appeal within 45 days of the date of the vote on the original decision, or 15 days from the date of the vote on the decision on reconsideration, if the original decision is reconsidered to Superior Court from any order, relief, or denial in accordance with main rules of civil procedure. So I believe I have responded correctly to this citizen. My first advice was to make sure that they had spoken to the planning board and then to the codes enforcement officer. I did point out that we couldn't hear an appeal about a process. We could only hear an appeal about a decision. And I asked pointedly about a decision and a date, and that was never produced. I think just for fairness, I will continue this conversation with this individual and see if in fact there is a decision that they want to appeal.
Do you even think you need to have a conversation with this person, Tom? It seems like that's completely out of our hands, that it comes into our hands if there's a decision and they want to appeal that decision. I don't think we should be counseling anybody on anything, do you? Other than what the law says here.
Well, I tend to agree with you, John, and I wasn't certain myself what to do. As I say, I tried to be specific about needing a decision and a date, and that we couldn't field an appeal about a process in action. And that was what the last wording of an email from the citizen was. It was all so nebulous that it didn't meet the standards that are set for an appeal.
Right. I just don't want you or Patrick or whoever or us as a board to get into a really fuzzy area. It should be, I think we'd like to, I don't know what the rest of the board feels, but I think it's just keep it as if there's an appeal, they make the appeal based on a decision, and then the town moves it on to us, and then we go from there. That's just, I just don't want to get into I don't want you or Patrick having to field calls from somebody who's trying to get information on other things that aren't really related to our appeals board.
I agree with John.
I do too.
Strongly, and I mean, I think the whole thing about having, you don't want, this is all by email, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think you've said what needs to be said, and I'm not sure it's even appropriate to go further in terms of any kind of side door conversation. So, I mean, you've said what there is to say is, you know,
And you directed them to the ordinance.
right, and if
Yeah.
that's a lot, well, that's too bad. That's the responsibility of a person if they wanna find out what the law is.
Yeah,
I did, in my responses, I, included Janet Anderson and Bill Shoppy.
Mhm.
And again, there's been no formal follow-up on any of this. I may just check back in with, Bill and Janet. But other than that, I guess I agree with all of you that I don't need to do anything directly for this individual.
No, you've been very helpful already.
Okay, thank you. I needed that that affirmation. All right. Dylan did mention, training. I wish Peter were here. I know that Peter did go through the training. And I wish you were here to make sure that's true, but as far as I know, that did happen.
That sounds familiar.
I don't know of any follow-up training, Dylan, that is offered. That same training you went through, that I went through, that everyone goes through, is just repeated. And
Yeah. Yeah, it's this seminar in, I think it was Augusta, but, with the through the Maine Municipal
Yeah,
Association.
MMA.
And it was the Board of Appeals training.
Yeah.
It was Board of Appeals and Select Board or something.
Mhm.
So I completed that
Good. So,
last
you know, as I said, earlier, you know, you were on the seat if you needed to create a quorum, you would be
Right.
called and then you would be a voting member just like anyone else.
Right. Because I'm listed as an alternate.
Right. You were an
Yeah.
alternate unless, the board, declares at a meeting that you will now function as a voting member.
Right.
For that meeting.
But we would like for you to attend all meetings with us.
No, and I will.
Great,
Yeah, general, I mean, unless something comes up.
good. Any other concerns? Questions? This is a board with large responsibilities that hasn't actually come to play for any of us. That was one of the benefits of having Jim Mitchell on here. He had actually been through the appeal process with Lucadia, but that's now, I think I think it was started in 05 and finished in 08 or something. So that's, yeah, about 16 years ago, I think. I believe that's what happened. So none of us have been through that process. Carrie's never been through the process.
What was the name of that issue?
Lucadia was an international development company that bought Northeast Point. And they first proposed, I think, 25 subdivision of dividing 25 buildable lots. And the planning board negotiated with them, pushed back. It went on for several years. And then 2008 happened when the real estate market tanked and they just backed away. Those plans were dropped. And then they finally sold it. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, Patrick, I will, I guess I should do this in a public meeting too. We shouldn't be talking about it outside of. So, you know, my suggestions to you to do the things that I didn't do very well, which is to have an annual meeting.
Yeah.
I think the fall is a nice time to do it, but it's up to you. And it would be nice if we had a second alternate.
Mhm.
And I recruited Dylan. If anyone else thinks of anyone else that might be a useful party. Oh, I think I did. Did I send you when your terms expire? Did you see, do you know that?
I've seen it, but I can't remember if you sent
Yeah,
it to me.
I saw that someplace recently.
I think I got something
Two more
out with
years
everybody's date.
Frost, I think.
So let's just look at that for just a moment.
Oh. 3 years.
3-year
Well,
terms.
3-year terms,
There's
yeah.
2 more years left. The new year.
If you ever have a question about that, then clerk keeps these on file,
Okay.
the swearing in sheet.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we have 2
I
more years.
think you helped me do this, or maybe Tina did, I can't remember.
Tina, probably.
So, yeah, I and John and Dylan expire in 2025. And Peter and Susan and Patrick expire in 2027. Now, if you're willing to serve beyond that, all it takes is to say yes, and the select board reappoints you. I do think that this board particularly would benefit from continuity, and we've done pretty well that way. So I would ask you if you can. I know, John, you've mentioned that you would might want to step down the next time, but you've got
Well,
a year to think about it.
I have a year to think about it, but the problem is just, with a 3-year commitment on this board, I just don't know, I mean, this will be going on 9 years for me. So I did
Yeah.
what, 3, if I re-upped again. So it's just, I don't know, I go back and forth with that. Just, I would feel not good if there was an appeal and I was not,
So
Sure, he would be fine. He would be good.
I'll float the idea.
Why don't you contact him? Would you feel okay about that?
Yeah.
Anyone else have any other names that you might think people would be appropriate or interested?
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'll give it some
You
thought.
to other people about your age, just for the,
Yeah.
I can ask them. I
Ask
mean,
them.
I encourage my friends to come to these, but they generally don't.
I
You
know.
know, we have people show a lot of interest about issues and then they won't show up to even a town meeting.
How about
So,
Ben Dove, Dylan? Wouldn't Ben be a good person to
yeah,
be on?
no, he's great. I mean, he's got 2 kids that I think take up. I mean, yeah, I'll ask around.
Okay.
I'll ask
mean,
Ben. I'll ask Ben also. I'll do the same with Ben. Tell him how
Yes.
good of a person he would be to be on this committee.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, it's not a major commitment, but of course, if we get into an appeal, that'll change this.
That's the nature of this committee is a little weird. Being on it, going on my 6th year with it, and having gone through the training, I somewhat get a little nervous about appeals because I feel like I've forgotten everything from the training. I think I feel like I would have to go through training again. It's in order to be if there was a real legal battle going on of some sort.
Well, do you still have this, John?
Yes, I do. I should reread that, Tom, I guess, right?
It's got everything in there. I mean,
Yeah.
just for me, going over just a little bit, chapter 1, just the basics, just helps me again, like, as you say, sort of clarify what we're all about. But it's got everything in here.
Yeah, I should just, I mean, yeah,
It's
I'll
light
reread.
reading.
It's very light reading. Yes, it is. I
It's
remember
good.
the training. Anyway, it's all good.
right. Good. All right, any other comments or questions? If not, I'd take a motion to adjourn.
You go.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, John?
John says aye.
Aye.
Patrick? Tom, aye. Susan, aye. And thank you very much, Dylan, for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. And let's work on Ben.
Yeah, Ben, I'll ask a few other people.
Yeah.
I would love for them to participate.
Yeah.
And tell them how much fun we have, and it's only a meeting once a year. So
Yeah. No, yeah,
tentatively,
The food is really good.
yeah, sure.
Once they're hooked, then, you know, it doesn't matter that there's no food.